Elliot Reeve never thought his morning would end with him making an entire empire angry. He was just sitting in his spaceship's viewing room, drinking his cheap fake coffee, and trying to remember if the Zalari aliens liked bows, salutes, or maybe some kind of dance when you meet them. Then suddenly, his shuttle started shaking hard. Red warning lights flashed everywhere and the computer started speaking in a language that sounded like it came from a science fiction movie. A loud voice came through the speakers, mixed with static noise and what seemed like someone being annoyed. Unknown ship, you have flown into Ziri space. You now belong to Her Majesty. Cool, Elliot said, holding his coffee cup carefully. Do I get a special card or something? Nobody answered him. But they did catch his ship with a tractor beam. His small shuttle got pulled into the huge landing bay of the Zari main ship. The ship was massive, about the size of a whole state, and it sparkled like a giant disco ball built by someone who loved war. When Elliot walked down the ramp, 2 serious guards in black armor stood on either side of him. He tried to look brave and confident. But when you haven't eaten breakfast, confidence mostly looks like you might throw up. The hallways were huge like a church, with glowing symbols on the walls and panels that hummed quietly. The air smelled like electricity, or maybe like someone very proud of themselves. They brought Elliot to a big room with a raised circle platform in the middle. Zari officials stood all around. Then she walked in. Queen Zerelia of the Zalari Imperium. She moved like thunder in slow motion. Every Zalari person in the room got down on their knees as her long cape swept across the shiny floor. The floor looked like it was made from star material or really fancy marble that thought it was better than everything else. She was stunning to look at. Tall, with perfect features and silver eyes that seemed to look not just at your face but deep into your family history. Her long ears curved back from her head like beautiful sculptures, moving slightly like they were picking up signals from shy stars that didn't want to talk directly. Elliot's brain, already tired from the rough journey, completely stopped working at that exact moment. She stopped in front of him. She said nothing. Just looked at him. And Elliot, a man who once convinced a security officer to give back his suitcase using just a funny poem, opened his mouth and said, "You're so beautiful, I can't even speak." Complete silence. Even the little translator bug on his collar froze, blinking like it wanted to pretend it didn't know him. Zerelia's ears twitched once. Then something impossible happened. Her cheeks turned a bright shiny blue color that sparkled like holographic embarrassment. Zalari people didn't turn red, but this blue was definitely a blush. Everyone in the court gasped. One guard dropped their weapon. Somewhere a robot exploded from too much emotion. Zerelia, the ruler of 1,000 moons, took one careful step backward. "Excuse me?" she asked. Her voice sounded like soft velvet dipped in ice. Elliot, realizing he might get turned into atoms for flirting, coughed. "I mean, that wasn't a pickup line. It was just like, wow, you walked in and my brain crashed. Like a blue screen from too much beauty." Another silence. The Queen's ears twitched again. A low rumbling sound went through the room, somewhere between confusion and laughter. "You are a diplomat?" she asked. "Technically," Elliot said. "But mostly I just drink coffee and pretend I understand space business laws." A whisper went through the council. A auxiliary official in robes leaned close and whispered something to the Queen. She waved them away. "You are not what I expected," she said. "Same here," Elliot said. "I didn't think royal people could blush. I thought you were above feelings or had them removed by surgery to be more efficient." Zerelia's eyes got narrow, but the corner of her mouth moved like she wanted to smile. "I promise you, our feelings work perfectly fine, she said. Elliot nodded seriously. Yeah, I can see that. Yours just punched me in the face. Zerelia turned and motioned to her helpers. Put this human under guest watch. I will question him more later. Question like in an interrogation, or Elliot started to ask. She didn't answer. She just walked away, her cape trailing behind her like a comet's tail. 2 guards came closer. Please follow us, guest, one said without blinking. Elliot followed slowly. You guys don't do welcome gift baskets or anything, huh? They took him to a room that was half prison cell, half fancy hotel room. There was a couch that could adjust gravity, a floating computer screen, and a snack machine that offered things like crispy neutron clusters and hydrated glow bark. He picked something that looked like a glowing grape. It tasted like electricity. As Elliot walked around the room, he tried to understand what just happened. He wasn't exactly good at dating between different species. He barely managed dating humans. His last relationship ended when he forgot their anniversary and sent a text saying Happy Memory Day with a cow emoji. Now he'd accidentally charmed an alien queen. Or insulted her. Or both. The door opened with a hiss. She crossed the room carefully and gracefully. You have broken court rules, ruined hundreds of years of proper behavior, and made your queen turn a visible color. Explain yourself. I panicked. That is not a real explanation. It's the only one I have. She tilted her head. Her ears flicked once. You are very strange. I hear that a lot. Usually after I've ruined dinner. Zerelia looked at him for a long time. Then she sat down. Not on the fancy floating throne nearby, but on the floor with her legs crossed like someone at story time. I want to understand this human honesty, this speaking without a filter. Oh, that, Elliot said. Yeah, that's not really a cultural thing. That's just me. A walking disaster. Zerelia's voice was quieter now. No one speaks to me like that. No one sees me. They see the crown, the power, the empire. Not me. Elliot sat across from her. The silence stretched out. Well, he said, to be fair, your ears are doing half the talking. They kind of show your whole mood. Zerelia blinked. Then softly, barely, she laughed. It sounded like tapping a crystal with starlight. And somewhere deep in the ship, an old sensor picked up the vibration of something new, something possibly dangerous. A queen starting to feel. Elliot woke up to a holographic rooster screaming motivational phrases in 12 languages. It took him 3 seconds to remember the room wasn't his dirty apartment back on Earth. It took 5 more seconds to remember he was technically still a prisoner or maybe a confused boyfriend. The line was getting blurry. The lights adjusted automatically to his brain waves, which the Zalari thought was polite. But it made Elliot feel like 1,000 thinking lamps were silently judging him. He walked over to the breakfast panel and pushed a random button. Something that looked like glowing oatmeal came out. It smelled like batteries. He poked it. No thanks. The door opened with a hiss before he could find a spoon. Zarnak entered. Zarnak was the Zalari person assigned to watch Elliot. Maybe as a babysitter. Maybe as a secret killer. It was hard to tell. Zarnak's face stayed fixed in a look of permanent annoyance, like someone forced to watch a toddler on a warship. Her Majesty wants to see you. Is this the kind of request where if I say no, I wake up in a time loop? Zarnak blinked once. Follow me. They walked through the hallways of the royal ship, passing Zalari officers who moved away from Elliot like waves. Some muttered things that sounded like soft blood and emotion vector. One particularly tall Zari made a hand sign of a hexagon. Elliot decided it was either a holy blessing or an ancient insult. They brought him to the central room. Not the throne room this time, but a huge simulation hall filled with floating symbols, pulsing geometric shapes, and something that looked like a meditation garden designed by a thinking Rubik's Cube. Queen Zerelia stood in the center with her hands behind her back, studying a hologram of Earth. Elliot cleared his throat. If this is about the planet, I promise it wasn't my idea to invent Twitter. Zerelia turned. Her face was unreadable. I have studied your culture. That's a dangerous sentence. She tilted her head. I watched 17 hours of your reality programs. If these are real, your species solves problems by putting people in fake dramatic places and voting each other off islands. Yeah, Elliot said, rubbing the back of his neck. We're kind of a work in progress. I also found something called a cat meme. Oh yeah, those are ancient human artifacts. Some experts think they're older than farming. Zerelia didn't smile, but her ears flicked in what Elliot now recognized as mild amusement. She stepped forward and touched the simulation controls. The hologram changed to show an image of two stick figures labeled Queen and Human standing awkwardly next to each other. I want to understand your way of thinking, she said directly. Elliot squinted. You want me to teach you how to be human? I want to learn emotional inefficiency, spontaneity, irrational affection, the art of speaking without filters. You're asking me to teach you how to mess up on purpose. Zerelia gave the tiniest nod. I have scheduled a 2-hour session called Lessons in Flawed Behavior. You will start now. Elliot held up a finger. Okay, great. Quick question. Do you know that your entire war council is watching us from behind that see-through energy wall? Zerelia didn't turn. They are worried. Let them watch. Cool, Elliot said, looking at the scowling figures. No pressure. Just a quick talk on human awkwardness in front of a military court. She waited. All right, he said. Lesson 1. Sarcasm. It's a type of humor where we say the opposite of what we mean to show disdain, irony, or deep emotional distance. Zerelia looked interested. Show me? Elliot pointed at the hologram of himself. Wow, that guy looks super smart. Definitely didn't try to eat a scented candle once because he thought it was fancy candy. The Queen blinked. So you are not praising yourself? Nope. Sarcasm, she thought about it. You are trying to hide emotional pain with humor. Correct. That is very inefficient. That's the point. Zerelia stepped closer. Lesson 2. Elliot nodded. Jokes. Jokes are structured nonsense designed to make people laugh, feel uncomfortable, or question existence, depending on how long you've been awake. He cleared his throat. Knock, knock. She stared. Who is knocking? It's a format. Just say who's there. Who is there? Interrupting star cow. Interrupting star cow. Moo! Elliot shouted, throwing his hands in the air. Zerelia stared at him for a long moment. Then her ears twitched so hard one of her royal helpers flinched. She breathed out and made a sound. It wasn't exactly a laugh. More like a held-back sonic hiccup. But it echoed through the hall like an unplanned nebula. Lesson 3, Elliot said, bowing. Overreacting to small compliments. You're doing great. She raised an eyebrow. That was sincere. Half sincere, half joking. You'll get used to it. Zerelia turned to her counsel. This exercise will continue. Dismissed. The Zalari officers didn't move. That was not a request, she said. They scattered like bugs under a magnifying glass. Zarnak stayed by the door, twitching like he was allergic to everything happening. Zerelia turned back to Elliot. Tomorrow we will cover personal anxiety and unexpected dancing. I can't wait, he said. I'll bring charts. She paused. Also, I have scheduled a private dinner for analysis. Elliot blinked. Dinner? Or royal food testing dinner where I have to eat something that whispers regrets? Possibly both. He grinned. As long as it's not the glowing oatmeal. Zerelia looked at him, ears tilting. You're strange, Elliot Reeve. And you blush, he replied. Her cheeks flickered blue again. She left before he could say another word. Back in his room, Elliot sat on the floating couch thinking. He was either building a diplomatic miracle or falling headfirst into the weirdest space crush in recorded history. Maybe both. The dinner room floated. Not as a metaphor. It literally hovered 3 meters above the gravity deck in a clear sphere, gently spinning like a snow globe someone had filled with diplomacy and the danger of cross-species flirting. Elliot pressed a hand to the inside of the sphere and watched the stars ripple outside. He was wearing a formal tunic that itched in 17 places and might have been partly alive. It whispered encouragement every time he scratched. You are statistically acceptable, it murmured. Possibly desirable. I'm going to assume that's a compliment, he whispered back. Zerelia entered, followed by 2 floating platforms carrying crystal dishes. Her gown was darker than a collapsed star and shimmered every time she moved, like someone had embroidered math equations into the fabric. Elliot stood too fast, knocking over his water sphere. It hovered in midair, looking ashamed. Greetings, Zerelia said. I hope your clothing is not broken. It's fine, Elliot said, fixing the collar. It keeps telling me I'm emotionally capable. I don't know if I should feel comforted or judged. She sat with perfect royal grace. The platforms presented an appetizer that looked like clear flowers wrapped around cubes of something jelly-like and vibrating. Ciliary soul fruit, she said. Picked only under twin moon eclipses. Said to reveal one's hidden intentions. Elliot poked a cube. I once revealed my hidden intentions with onion rings and a coupon. Does that count? She didn't laugh, but her ears curled slightly at the tips. She took a piece with slender fingers and ate it, eyes watching him. Elliot did the same. The fruit melted on his tongue and tasted like every dream he'd ever forgotten just before waking up. It was alarming and slightly minty. I regret nothing, he said, swallowing. Except maybe the second bite. That one had a flashback. Zerelia leaned forward. You are different from your leaders. Untrained, illogical, yet strangely effective. Strangely is a strong word. Last time I tried to use charm as a strategy, I got banned from a vending machine for 6 months. She tilted her head. I have studied over 9,000 Earth psychological profiles. Most show high self-protection tendencies. You, however, seem inclined toward deliberate vulnerability. I prefer the term professional chaos maker. The main course arrived. Spirals of what looked like glowing pasta mixed with seeds that glowed faintly in response to emotion. Every time Elliot made eye contact with Cerelia, his plate lit up like a party. "Okay, these noodles are telling on me," he muttered. "They are affection-sensitive," Cerelia said calmly. "Part of our Truth Feast customs." Truth Feast? Sounds like a holiday we'd invent and immediately sell merchandise for. Cerelia touched her fork to one of the spirals. Her expression changed slightly. "You're nervous." "I'm on a date with a ruler who could rearrange my atoms alphabetically. Nervous is my normal state." She blinked slowly. "I am told that among humans, nerves often come before confession." "Oh, we're doing confessions." "Okay. I once pretended to understand quantum language studies for 6 months because I liked the lab coat." Cerelia nodded seriously. "I sometimes imagine leaving my empire and becoming a planet gardener." Elliot nearly choked on a seed. "I'm sorry." "What?" She shrugged. "Growing things. They do not lie. They bloom or they die. Simple. Honest." There was a silence. Comfortable. Unplanned. Then Cerelia looked toward a side panel. A message pulsed. "War Council requesting meeting. Urgent matters." She sighed, then touched the panel and declined it. "Shouldn't you? They are capable of panicking without me. It's what they do best." Elliot grinned. "If you ever want a side job as a sarcasm teacher, I can get you work. I have been practicing." She reached across the table. Her fingers brushed his. The glow from the plates got so bright they looked like they were applauding. "Do you often fall for planet rulers?" she asked. "Only the ones who kidnap me, reorganize my worldview, and feed me emotionally sensitive spaghetti." Her face stayed calm, but her ears betrayed her, shivering slightly and pulsing with blush. From outside the sphere, Zarnak hovered grimly on a security drone, watching the dinner with the look of someone mentally writing a resignation letter in 5 languages. "Would you like to see something?" Cerelia asked. "Always." She stood. The walls of the sphere faded into full transparency. Stars spun around them, impossibly close, impossibly many. In the distance, a living moon blinked slowly and continued its orbit. Cerelia raised a hand. The stars shifted. A shape formed. 2 figures, barely silhouettes, orbiting each other in shifting light. "It is a Zeri-courting projection," she said. "Used for ancient bonding rituals." "I like it," Elliot said. "It's subtle." She lowered her hand and the stars returned to normal. "I do not know what this is," she said quietly. "This feeling between us. It is not in the computer programs." "Well," Elliot said, stepping closer. "Maybe that's the point." Their hands touched again. The plates glowed so brightly they shorted out. In the War Council room, emergency alerts started pinging. Unknown variable detected. Emotional deviation increasing. High Command argued over rules, but Cerelia simply stood with Elliot, watching stars they didn't have names for. The next morning, Elliot woke to the sound of his outfit whispering, "You are radiantly average today." He groaned, pulled the collar over his head, and stumbled toward the screen as the room gently adjusted its gravity to match his blood pressure. A notification blinked on the wall. You have been summoned to Imperial Heart Court. Subsection: Emotional Judiciary. Dress code: non-threatening. Refusal penalty: possible exile or extended polite conversation. He sighed, grabbed a tunic that only flickered with passive-aggressive LED symbols, and followed the hallway, half expecting another floating food ball to attack him on the way. Instead, Zarnak stood waiting, holding what looked like a ceremonial binder made of woven starlight and office spite. You're late, Zarnak muttered. The council is already heated. Elliot adjusted his tunic. They do realize I didn't propose marriage, right? I made her laugh. That's not treason on Earth. That's a second date. Zarnak didn't respond. His nostrils flared slightly, which on a Zalari meant either disgust or allergies. The Heart Court was less of a courtroom and more of an existential arena. Floating platforms formed circular rings above a bottomless drop, and a giant central orb recorded every emotional change for legal measurement. The council members were suspended in anti-gravity thrones, robes flowing dramatically even though there was no wind. Elliot stepped onto the defendant's disc, which hummed in a disapproving tone. The High Judge rotated slowly toward him. Her ears were long and wrapped in ceremonial threads that shimmered with judicial threat. Elliot Reeve, she began, you stand accused of compromising Her Majesty through wild emotional contamination, unauthorized intimacy, and the destabilization of at least 4 core rules about royal detachment. Elliot raised a hand. I'd like to plead extremely human. A wave of disapproval passed through the chamber. Zerelia sat on her own platform, face unreadable, back straight, ears twitching once every few seconds like a radio trying to find the right signal. The judge continued. Do you deny starting disruptive emotional resonance? I mean, I told her she was beautiful and she turned blue. That's kind of my thing. Is it true, another counselor droned, that you caused Her Majesty to experience involuntary laughter during a classified strategic meeting? She laughed at a joke about space goats. There were diagrams involved. Laughter is not strategic. Disagree. Have you seen our politics? The orb pulsed violently. The judge tapped a crystal button. A hologram activated above Elliot's head. Dozens of clips showing him making Zerelia smile, lean in, tilt her head, eat fizzy dessert with visible enjoyment. Each moment was time-stamped and emotionally labeled. Subversion. Unauthorized amusement. Mutual curiosity. I think you're overreacting, Elliot said. With all respect, this feels like prosecuting someone for giving a plant sunlight. Her Majesty is not a plant. She's a smart, powerful ruler who hasn't smiled genuinely in decades. And she did because someone treated her like a person, not a rule book. A pause. One elderly counselor leaned forward. And your intentions? Are they romantic? Elliot opened his mouth, closed it, then shrugged. I don't know. I didn't come here to fall for anyone. I came to study your language and make 0 diplomatic waves. But she's smart, weirdly elegant, and yeah, she can probably collapse a neutron star by frowning at it. But when she listens to someone talk about cats with socks, her ears do this wiggle thing. Another pause. The orb registered mildly inappropriate awe. The judge turned to Zerelia. Your Highness, speak. Zerelia stood. The room went quiet. This human has done what no one else has managed. Not with gifts. Not with bowing. He made me feel curious, uncertain, alive. For the first time in many cycles, I experienced myself as more than function. One of the younger officials started to protest, but she raised a hand. I do not give up the throne. I do not abandon my people. But I question a system that treats authenticity as a threat. A murmur spread. Elliot stepped forward. Look, I know I'm not what you expected. I say names wrong. I knock over sacred utensils. I once greeted a dignitary by quoting a song from a 1990s sitcom. But if there's a chance to build something, anything that includes laughter, shouldn't that be a sign of progress, not collapse? The orb pulsed. High intensity. Honesty detected. The judge blinked once, then reluctantly tapped her staff. The accusation symbols dissolved. This court does not approve, but it will not interfere. Zerelia looked at Elliot. Her ears twitched in slow, balanced arcs. Outside, the stars pulsed in a rhythm no computer program could explain. Zarnak, waiting in the hallway, muttered something that translated roughly to "I knew it." We're doomed. Elliot stood on the viewing deck with a ceremonial ribbon tied around his head. He wasn't sure why. Someone handed it to him after the council meeting and said it is tradition before disappearing in a cloud of official smoke. The ribbon beeped sometimes. He leaned against the glass, watching the stars blur by as the Zalari ship cut across space below light speed. Below, the planet Telverith glowed with soft purple oceans and clouds shaped like existential regrets. It was apparently the chosen place for the newly proposed cultural accord of mutual weirdness. Elliot hadn't picked the name, but he loved it completely. Behind him, the doors whooshed open. You are wearing it backwards, Zerelia said. I suspected that, Elliot replied. It called me chieftain of soft foods. That is a high honor among the Nebulite food caste. I'm humbled. She stood beside him. Her silhouette was outlined by the distant light of two suns politely failing to explode. So, Elliot said. We're really doing this. Zerelia nodded. A formal alliance. Emotional transparency. Shared holidays. You're going to love Earth's customs. We have one where people dress up as monsters and demand processed sugar from their neighbors. Zalari do that on alternate Wednesdays. We call it assertive diplomacy training. He grinned. We might not be so different. She turned to him. Are you afraid? Terrified, Elliot said. But in a thrilling I might accidentally become an ambassador or a romantic footnote in an alien history book kind of way. She looked at him quietly. You have changed. I have an intergalactic crush, a universal arrest record, and a tunic that compliments me every time I trip. Yeah, I'd say I've grown. Zerelia's ears curled slightly. I mean emotionally. He paused. Oh. That too. I used to think vulnerability was a problem. Turns out it's just the manual override for connection. The lights in the hallway shifted from diplomatic blue to mildly festive lavender, signaling the beginning of the accord ceremony. Zarnak appeared, holding 2 ceremonial tablets and looking like he'd aged 6 solar cycles in the last week. The crowd awaits, Zarnak said. I have prepared an emergency sedative in case either of you says something human. No promises, Elliot said, taking his tablet. I have 3 puns locked and loaded. You're a menace, Zarnak muttered, then walked off before he could hear Elliot say, You wound me, sir. The ceremony took place in the open sky above Telvarith, on a floating stage held up by gravity ribbons and artistic drones. Delegates from 12 systems hovered in circular orbits, broadcasting every facial twitch and diplomatic eyebrow raise back home. Elliot stepped up first. I, Elliot Reeve, certified chaos gremlin and occasional peacemaker, do hereby agree not to weaponize affection, sarcasm, or space pasta against the Ziri people. In return, I request full meme exchange rights, limited teleportation access, and the Queen's full cooperation in attending one Earth birthday party per solar cycle. There was a pause, then polite clapping, followed by a brief Solari chant that translated roughly to "May your awkwardness bring balance." Zerelia stepped forward. I, Zerelia, Queen of the Imperium, Guardian of Void Protocols, formally recognize the value of unstructured emotion. I accept vulnerability not as weakness, but as potential. And I accept this alliance with open logic and guarded optimism. Then after a beat, she added, and I will attend the birthday party, provided there is cake and no singing. Elliot held out his hand. Zerelia extended hers. Their fingers touched. The drones emitted a celebratory ripple that temporarily messed up local radio signals. Afterward, as the guests left and the atmosphere returned to low-key diplomacy, Elliot and Zerelia wandered toward the ship's plant chamber. A gift from a Terran representative who thought flowers were the universal language. Most of the plants were confused but cooperative. They sat on a bench made of living crystal. Elliot stretched his legs. "Do you think this will last?" he asked. "The Accord." "Possibly." "No. I mean us. The Queen and the Chaos Guy." Zerelia looked at him. "Possibly." He laughed. "You're getting good at uncertainty. I have an excellent teacher." They sat quietly for a while, watching a glowing fern try to copy their body language. Zerelia spoke softly. "Before you, I only knew power, command, predictability. Now I know the shape of confusion, the taste of fear, the color of blush." Elliot reached for her hand. And it is beautiful," she said. He squeezed her fingers gently. "You're so beautiful I can't even speak," he whispered again. Zerelia blushed. The fern blushed too, for some reason. Above them, the stars kept spinning, unaware that history had just bent ever so slightly toward the impossible. And Elliot, once a clumsy language expert with a crooked smile, now sat next to a queen who once ruled with precision. Neither of them certain. But both of them finally complete.